Good morning. Thank you so much for being with us. So we are speaking about the tragic crash of the Malaysian Airlines plane. Could you tell us how do you deal with this situation, how hard it is to discover who actually did it? Because we've seen blames flying from one side to another. Russia is blaming Ukraine, Ukraine is blaming Russian separatists. Is there a technical capability to discover who actually did it?
I think there is a technical capability to discover who did this, and we need to collect more information, but we know a lot more now than we did 24 hours ago. First of all, the system that was used to shoot this aircraft down was a highly technical system, had to exceed almost 30,000 feet altitude, which means it was not a shoulder-fired or a smaller system like an SA-9, but it required a larger system like the Buk or SA-11 missile system. That's one, and that's the kind of system requires a great deal of training and teamwork in order to launch and fire. Initially, it appeared that rebels or separatists would not have the training or capability to launch such a system, but I think the facts as we know them now indicate that it probably was, in fact, separatists or rebels who launched such a missile. First, we know that the missile was launched from separatist region. This we had by virtue of American intelligence sources. We also have eyewitness accounts that are being reported by journalists from that region that the missile was launched from the separatist region. The second thing is that the Buk missile system, if it was operating as just one vehicle, one system with its small radar on it and with its missiles, that means it would have had only an acquisition radar, which is a shorter range radar, and it would not have been probably connected to a surveillance radar, which is a bigger, different vehicle, which is most often connected to these systems in a real army. And a surveillance radar with its longer range would have told the crew where the aircraft was coming from, would have given them time to think about, was this aircraft civilian or military? But it's likely they were not connected to a surveillance radar and only had moments from the time that they either visually saw the airplane or their smaller acquisition radar picked it up to decide whether or not they were going to launch their missile. This was clearly a mistake. I don't believe that anyone who fired this missile or any of the three parties in that conflict there, Russia, Ukraine, or the separatists, would have wanted to shoot down a civilian airliner, but it happened. So no one is going to willingly take responsibility. But I think all the facts today, as we know them, point to the separatists, either with Russian training or help, or using separatist rebels who were air defense professionals by virtue of previous training.
If indeed the missile was launched from the area controlled by separatists, what does it mean in terms of investigation? Is there a possibility to tamper somehow with the possible evidence on site if they are collecting indeed black boxes, etc., by themselves?
Yeah, there is a possibility that the site could be tampered with, but my understanding is that the rebels have initially said that they would allow investigators and rescue workers to come in and retrieve the bodies and the deceased and effects. And in doing that, if we can get investigation teams in there, we'll be able to eventually figure out what kind of missile, because fragments of the missile will still be embedded in the plane, we'll be able to figure out what kind of missile shot it down. This will help us figure out, confirm the type of missile system and its origin.
Many people are asking today why the airspace wasn't closed if there is a conflict going on and there were several planes shot down. Was there any misstep or mistake or miscalculation on the part of the authorities for not doing it earlier?
Well, I don't think the authorities are responsible for the acts of this team or the crew that shot it down. However, the authorities probably erred in not being more strict about their restrictions in flight over Ukraine, especially this region. However, this airplane was flying in a recognized and declared safe zone. It was above 32,000 feet, and the restrictions that were in place were on aircraft flying below that. That is because no one believed that the rebels could have access to or the ability to fire such a long-range air defense system. But clearly that was not correct, and I think that now no one will be flying over eastern Ukraine.
Do you see any lessons from this incident for the future in areas of conflict?
Well, in terms of lessons for the future, I think this shootdown is going to have a dramatic effect on the countries that are not directly involved in the war in eastern Ukraine right now. They will now become more involved in that war. Much like the sinking of the Lusitania in 1915 increased the involvement and interest of Americans in World War I, this shootdown is going to increase the interest and involvement of Europeans and Asians in what has happened in what is happening in eastern Ukraine.
And if it will be proven that pro-Russian separatists are behind this missile, what kind of steps would you expect the West to take? Any tougher steps against Russia, for example, specifically, or anything else? Because it looks like something that demands a response.
Yeah, I think you will continue to see ratcheted up sanctions by the United States. I believe that when final evidence comes in and European nations are confronted with it, I think that they will impose stronger sanctions. I don't think that you'll see American soldiers in Ukraine, but you may see more American military support.
Ukrainians asked several times for precision weapons. Senator McCain, for example, called to help them to protect themselves if it will be proven again that these are separatists. So is it worth granting? Is it justified for the U.S. to consider this kind of aid?
Yeah, I think the United States should consider it. It's a dangerous escalation for the United States to begin to ship lethal military supplies to the Ukraine for use in possible conflict with Russian troops. That would be the real danger. But I do think that given what's happened here in the last 24 hours, and really given the Russian response, which has been to deny and to divert blame to other parties, I think that these things should be on the table now.
Just one last thing. President Putin basically said it's the responsibility of Ukraine because it was on their territory and they renewed military assault, and if they didn't, that wouldn't have happened. So what can you say about this?
That kind of logic is what we call in America the devil made me do it logic. It's not an excuse that we accept even from our own children. We certainly wouldn't expect that kind of an excuse to be used by a world leader. I think whatever the situation there is in eastern Ukraine, the crew and the team and the commanders that were responsible for launching the weapon are the ones responsible for shooting down a civilian airliner. And any criminal charges, any justice, any action in terms of legal or criminal action would be directed against them.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.